The train doors were already sliding shut when I saw my son step back onto the platform, not running, not waving, just standing there while the metal closed between us, and his face disappeared behind glass that reflected my own. I stayed inside. The train moved. My phone vibrated in my pocket, once, then again, and I didn't look down because I already knew who it would be and what it would mean. I watched the station pull away in pieces. Newark Penn Station broke apart window by window. A coffee cup tipped over near the stairs. A man shouted into a phone like the call mattered more than the train. A woman dropped her keys and didn't stop to pick them up. Everything kept going, while my phone kept vibrating. When I finally pulled it out, the screen showed an unfamiliar Arlington number and one line of text. Approval pending. Please confirm today. There was no greeting, no explanation, just certainty. The train slowed near Elizabeth. Another vibration followed, heavier this time, like the phone itself understood the weight of what it carried. A file was attached. I opened it before the doors finished opening. My name was at the top, typed clean and confident, the way authority always looks when it's printed. I recognized the phrasing beneath it because I had written its ancestors myself, back when revisions still came with red ink and arguments happened in rooms instead of inboxes. The decision was dated last winter, 1 week after my son, Daniel, had shown up at my door in Baltimore with a single bag and no explanation. I stayed on the train. As the document scrolled, language I knew too well revealed itself. Minor adjustment, routine approval, no direct impact. I had written phrases like that for 20 years and watched entire futures move because no one stopped to read past them. Halfway down the page, buried where only insiders ever looked, was a name I hadn't expected to see. Daniel Mercer. Recommendation approved. The train lurched forward. My stomach didn't. I got off at Metro Park and walked fast, not toward the exit, just away from the tracks, like distance might break the chain connecting me to what I'd just read. The file wasn't a clerical change. It redirected federal funding through Baltimore instead of D.C. It eliminated an oversight committee older than Daniel. It shifted liability from an elected office to a private contractor that answered to no one. If something failed, the blame would scatter until it disappeared. I had helped design safeguards against exactly this kind of drift, back when people still believed permanence mattered. My phone rang. Daniel answered before the second ring finished. "Dad," he said, like he'd been holding the word in his mouth. I said his name. That was all. "I figured you'd see it today," he said. Cars passed behind him. Someone laughed. Life went on. "Why is your name under mine?" I asked. "Because no one questions yours," he said calmly. "They just move it along." A transit cop slowed near the bench where I'd stopped and then kept walking. Daniel kept talking. "The system doesn't break loudly," he said. "It breaks slowly. People like you taught me that." I crossed the street without waiting for the light, a habit I'd picked up years ago when timing had mattered more than courtesy. A horn screamed. Daniel didn't pause. "You used my credibility," I said. "I borrowed it," he replied, "just long enough to keep things running." I reached the curb and stopped. The city felt louder than it should have been, engines and brakes stacking on top of each other. "This decision hurts people," I said. He exhaled. "Eventually, maybe, but delays hurt them first." That was the line, the one that told me how far he'd already gone. "When did you decide this?" I asked. "Months ago." And you didn't tell me because you still think the rules protect people, he said. They don't. People protect people. I'm doing that now. For who? For my family. The word hung between us. I waited for him to say my name. He didn't. The call ended without either of us hanging up. Another message from Arlington arrived immediately. Confirmation required by 5 p.m. I went home and opened the old laptop, the one I kept disconnected, untouched by convenience. I still typed the way I learned when mistakes stayed on paper, slow, deliberate, never assuming anything could be undone. The deeper files told the truth the summary hid. If this went through, failures wouldn't be accidents anymore. They'd be acceptable losses. Daniel hadn't invented the shortcut. He'd perfected it. I started calling numbers I wasn't supposed to have anymore. One answered. "How did you get this line?" I asked. "I helped build it," I said. "Check the date, December 14th. There was a pause, the kind that comes when someone checks how old a file really is. Silence, then quieter. The approval is already active, so reverse it. That would draw attention. Good, I said. He hesitated. That would put your name closer to the fallout. I looked at the screen where Daniel's recommendation sat under mine, neat and lethal. If the system only works when no one looks at it, then it deserves the attention. I returned to Newark Penn Station that evening and sat on the same platform. A janitor pushed a cart across the spot where the doors had closed that morning. I stayed until my phone rang again. "Daniel." "He heard you submitted a secondary record," he said. His voice was tighter now. "It's complete," I said. "Not loud, just accurate. You're slowing everything down. That's the point. You don't understand speed anymore," he said, almost laughing. "You come from a time when stopping was still an option." I stood near the yellow line where it faded and stopped pretending to warn anyone. Speed without brakes isn't efficiency. It's a crash you schedule in advance. Silence. Finally, he said, "They'll still approve it. Someone else will sign." "I know," I said, "but it won't be clean, and it won't be quiet." A train thundered through without stopping, hot air rushing across my legs. "I learned this from you," he said. "So did I replied. "That's why I'm stopping." That night, an Arlington official called to say my submission had been received. He said my timing was unfortunate. He said my influence wasn't permanent. "I know," I told him. "That's why I used it." The next morning, a headline appeared, small, technical, easy to skip. "Federal review delayed pending internal audit." Nothing dramatic, nothing viral, but things had stopped moving. I stood in my Baltimore kitchen as the train passed outside on schedule. I had spent a career learning when to move things forward and when to let them stop. This time, I chose stopping. My phone rang once more. Daniel's name lit up the screen. I didn't answer. I put on my jacket and walked away from the station, letting the distance build, not fast, not slow, until the sound of the train faded into something that no longer followed me.